Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Leader Jeffries, all of our treasured colleagues here in the House. I'm grateful for this nomination. I'm grateful for this election, for the confidence this chamber has placed in me. It is the great honor of my life to serve this body with all of you. Of course, these are difficult days in our home state of Louisiana, where I come from. We all know about the terrorist attack in New Orleans, and it's really shaken our state. People are reeling from that attack. It took the lives of 14 innocent people, and it injured dozens more. And I wanted to begin appropriately today. If we could, I'd ask you all to join me in a moment of silence for the victims of this horrific act. Thank you. Thank you for that. I believe in giving honor where honor is due, and all of us do well to honor our spouses. My wife happens to be here this time. She didn't make it last time. It happened a little sudden. Kelly, would you stand up here in the gallery? Thank you. And we have our 4 children here, Hannah, Abby, Jack, and Will. Will y'all stand up just really quickly? Come on. I wanted to do that. All of us recognize that there are no perks to being a congressman's kid, right? It's all sacrifice. And our spouses put up with so much, endless hours in travel and all the responsibilities upon us. And we're good to remind them how important they are to us and how we could not do the job without them. And so it's appropriate for all of us to do that. Thank you, guys. This is a momentous time in the nation of the history of our nation. It really is. And as members of the 119th Congress, we are stewards of the great American Revolution that began almost exactly now 250 years ago, 1775 and 1776. It will fall at the time of this Congress, the great anniversary. And in these 2.5 centuries, we've been reminded repeatedly that freedom is never free. And we have stood tall as the greatest nation on the face of the earth. It is without debate. We are the freest, the most powerful, most benevolent nation that has ever been in the history of the world. And it's not by happenstance. We are the ones who settled the West. We are the ones who ended slavery, who laid the transcontinental railroad, who gave women the right to vote, who won 2 world wars, who landed on the moon, and who won the Cold War. Throughout our history, we have done what no one thought was possible. And still, at 250 years old, our nation is actually a young nation. This past fall, I had opportunity to go to the G7 speakers meeting. It was held in Italy. It's the only international trip I took as speaker over the last 14 months because I didn't have time to do it, but it was a quick 3-day jaunt, and met with my colleagues, the speakers of the other parliaments, the great governments around the world. And we talked about that, how really special America is, how unique we are in our place on the globe, and how important it is for us to maintain that. And as I talked to these colleagues from around the world, I thought, our closest allies, who recognize how important we are, how important this body, this house is. I thought about how is it that such a young country has become so exceptional, so singular in its importance, that today stands as the world's leader in liberty and the economy and culture. 100 years ago, President Calvin Coolidge answered that very question in his inaugural address. It was March of 100 years ago, exactly almost. He said this: "We best serve our own country and most successfully discharge our obligations to humanity by continuing to be openly and candidly, intensely and scrupulously American." I love that. I love that. Today, yeah, that's right. That's an applause line. Today, my friends, our nation is the envy of the world. Why? Because we have been marked by a spirit and a people who are explicitly that. We are explicitly American. We don't try to be like other nations, and we recognize that a strong America is good for the entire world. And everybody around the globe knows that. That's right. We also recognize that the core principles that made America what we are must still be preserved today. The principles, I call them the 7 core principles of American conservatism, but it's really the 7 core principles of the nation itself. Individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. These are the ingredients, the things that made us who we are. And in America, we know that human flourishing is best achieved by adherence to time-tested truths. We could list a number of those simple truths. Here's a couple. It's better to give a hand up than a hand out. That innovation thrives when bureaucracy dies. The simple truth that it is parents and families and not administrators that must be in charge of their children's education. The path of prosperity has long been paved with policies that put America and Americans first. And that is what we will champion in the 119th Congress. We have a mandate, and that was shown in the election cycle. The people want an America First agenda. They do. Sadly, for the past 4 years of divided government, too many politicians in Washington have done the opposite. Open borders and overregulation have destroyed our cities and stifled innovation. Inflation and weak leadership have left Americans poorer, and they have placed our country in a perilous position. That's right. But in recent months, we've witnessed something happening, something that's really remarkable, a political moment in our modern history, a groundswell of Americans from every state, race, and religion who now demand that we put the interest of Americans first again, and we will, and we will. This is a powerful new coalition of our country. It's a coalition that insists that we purge the policies of America last and we bury them in the graveyard of history's mistakes, because it was a big mistake. To that end, this Congress will renounce the status quo and we will listen to the voices of the people. We will act quickly and we will start by defending our nation's borders. That's the #1 priority. Yes. In coordination with President Trump, this Congress will give our border and immigration enforcement agents the resources that they need to do their job. We will secure the border, we will deport dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens, and finally finish building the border wall. You said you'd work with us on that, Hakeem. I'm counting on it. After 4 years of high inflation, we have a big agenda. We have a lot to do, and we can do it in a bipartisan fashion. We can fight high inflation, and we must. We'll give relief to Americans, and we'll extend the Trump tax cuts. We're going to protect our industries from one-sided trade deals, and we're going to bring overseas investments back to America's shores. That's right. We'll defeat the harmful effects of inflation, and we'll make life affordable again for America's hardworking people. As leaders of a nation with vast natural resources that God has blessed us with, it is our duty to restore America's energy dominance, and that's what we'll do. We have to apply common sense. We have to stop the attacks on liquefied natural gas, pass legislation to eliminate the Green New Deal, that funding. We're going to expedite new drilling permits. We're going to save the jobs of our auto manufacturers, and we're going to do that by ending the ridiculous EV mandates. And as heirs to the American Revolution and the descendants of patriots who defied tyranny, in the coming months, we are going to pass legislation to roll back the totalitarian fourth branch of government known as the administrative state. We're going to drastically cut back the size and scope of government. We're going to return the power back to the people. And in coordination with President Trump and his administration, we are going to create a leaner, faster, and more efficient federal workforce. We need to do that. Our people do not deserve to be ruled by millions of bureaucrats they've never voted for, never met, and can never hold accountable. They deserve a government that is led by those they've elected to lead. That is how Article 1 is supposed to work. That was the idea of the Congress, and we will return to that principle. The American people have called on us to reject business as usual and throw out the status quo. We must and we will heed their call. This is especially important as it comes to our nation's military. For too long, the Washington establishment has sought to appease and accommodate our nation's adversaries. They've tried to replace our military warriors with social justice warriors. It does not work. And while we're still the most powerful fighting force in the history of the world, by God's grace, the same establishment has eroded the capacities of our Army and Navy and diminished the readiness of our Air Force. We have to put an end to this madness. My friends and my colleagues, I think we should all unite in this idea. It is time now to reinstate fear in our enemies, refocus our mission on lethality, and realign our commitment to peace through strength right now. We have to prioritize the things that matter most. We have to make adequate investments in defense. This is the most dangerous moment since World War II, and everyone around the world is looking to America and looking to this body to ensure that we maintain the peace. What we're proposing now is just simply, as President Trump likes to say, a return to common sense. And he's exactly right. That message resonated across the country. I am very thankful, personally, that this body is filled with men and women who are committed to that change, to return to common sense. We can do this together. We should. It is our responsibility to do so. When I first took this gavel, many of you heard me say that I don't believe in luck or consequence. I believe in the idea of providence. And this morning, I participated with many of you early this morning in the 119th Congress Interfaith Prayer Service. It was held at St. Peter's Catholic Church. Many of you were there. It was an ecumenical service and a bipartisan service, which was great. My good friend Hakeem Jeffries began by reading with the Old Testament. He read out of Deuteronomy 10. And then I was asked to provide a prayer for the nation. I offered one that is quite familiar to historians and probably many of us. It said right here in the program, it says right under my name, "It is said each day of his 8 years of the presidency and every day thereafter until his death, President Thomas Jefferson recited this prayer." I wanted to share it with you here at the end of my remarks, not as a prayer per se right now, but as a reminder of what our third president and the primary author of the Declaration of Independence thought was so important that it should be a daily recitation. Let me just read you that prayer. It goes like this. Thomas Jefferson's Prayer for the Nation, it's entitled. "Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech thee that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of thy favor and glad to do thy will. Bless our land with honorable ministry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitude brought hither out of many kindreds and tongues. Endow with thy spirit of wisdom those whom in thy name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to thy law we may show forth thy praise among the nations of the earth. In time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in thee to fail, of which we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. That was Thomas Jefferson's prayer. Yeah. Suffer not our trust in thee to fail. We will not fail. We cannot fail. We are all in this together. Our nation is counting on us to band together and solve these problems and get this done. I've said before that I believe God has elevated each one of you, that's just my belief, to your positions of leadership. And it's an act of providence that you've all been placed in your specific roles in this specific moment at this historic time, at the 250-year inflection point of the greatest nation in the history of the world. It is no small thing. We're also witnesses to the providence that spared our incoming president, President Trump, from the assassin's bullet, remarkable as that was, and to the new coalition of Americans that has risen from every creed, color, and cul-de-sac who want us to put America first. Our people are asking for a thriving economy and a rebuilt middle class and strong borders and a strong military, and we can deliver that. See, these objectives and these aims don't have an R or a D behind them. They have a USA. In just a few moments, we're all going to take an oath. It is the same one oath for one nation and under the banner of one great American flag. This is an opportunity for us to protect our shared American heritage, to maintain the conditions needed for self-government, and to defend what Hakeem said earlier, the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Working together, we have the potential to be one of the most consequential Congresses in the history of this great nation, so long as we work together, we do the right thing, and we put America first. As we think about all we've accomplished in the past 250 years, we can only imagine what life will be like 250 years from now. Whatever the future may look like, if we do our jobs now, we can help ensure that our civic virtues will endure, that this nation will still be an example to all the world for its greatness and its example of self-government, and that in spite of our great challenges and even our disagreements and our healthy debates, this extraordinary institution, the People's House, will still be standing strong. Thank you all so much, and God bless America.
All right, everybody. House Speaker Mike Johnson has just finished speaking after being reelected Speaker of the House. The Louisiana Republican won the Speaker vote. After one round of voting, the round lasted longer than some expected it to because 3 House Republicans initially opted not to vote for Johnson. However, Congressman Ralph Norman and Keith Self changed their votes before the first round came to an end. So these switches enabled Speaker Johnson to reach the 218 vote threshold he needed to win. Shortly after winning the Speaker vote, Johnson outlined his objectives while addressing the new Congress. Let's go ahead and listen. All right, you know what? We don't have it, but there were a number of priorities, including finishing the border wall, restoring Americans' energy dominance, ending EV mandates, cutting back the size and scope of the government, creating a leaner federal workforce. I want to go ahead to our team coverage for you. CBS News congressional correspondents Nicole Killian and Scott McFarland are on Capitol Hill. Scott, we're going to go to you first. First off, I understand that you have a statement from the House Freedom Caucus that could explain why 6 members originally didn't vote for Johnson and then after the roll call did.
Yeah, they have set out this list of demands of Speaker Johnson, what they expect from him over the coming months now that they've supported him for Speaker. I want to keep an eye on the House floor as I tell you this. Among the things they want are things they've been arguing for many years. They want 72 hours, 3 full days before they have votes on bills that are offered. They want some efforts to combat the deficit, on budget cutting. These are all things the Freedom Caucus regularly advocates for. They've now put this in writing almost as a message to the Speaker. You have our support for now, but if any 9 of us can get together, we can try to force a new vote, potentially replace the Speaker. What you're about to see is the swearing in of the rest of the U.S. House. The Dean of the U.S. House, the longest-serving member, which happens to be Hal Rogers, a Republican from Kentucky, will administer the oath to his 430-plus colleagues, who will all at once take the oath of office. Then they'll all step off the floor and take the oath of office symbolically by photo, one-on-one with the Speaker. That's Hal Rogers of Kentucky, raising his hand, administering the oath to his colleagues, some of whom are new, some of whom are newly elected members of Congress taking the oath for the first time, with wives, husbands, kids, and grandparents in the upper chamber watching this happen. Speaker Mike Johnson takes the oath simultaneously. But really what we've seen today, Lindsay, I think in a fundamental way, is a group of 3 defectors indicating what could be the storyline of the opening months of this Congress and the Trump administration. The majority is slim. The majority is fickle. The majority can be treacherous. On more difficult votes than simply choosing a speaker, Speaker Mike Johnson may have an awful lot of balancing to do, and that reality was shown today, despite what Mike Johnson closed his remarks with, that he hopes this is the most consequential Congress of all time. If so, it'll be threading an awful lot of needles.
Scott McFarland, we appreciate you throughout the afternoon, keeping us up to speed on everything in your world. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's go ahead and bring in Ed O'Keefe, senior White House and political correspondent in West Palm Beach. So, Ed, I understand we don't have a ton of time with you. I'm just going to ask you one question. If you want to add anything to the politicking that we saw behind the scenes today, and also if we're hearing anything from the president-elect and his reaction.
He has shared his congratulations with the Speaker on Truth Social. He was working the phones this morning into the afternoon to shore up support for Speaker Johnson, speaking with those that were holding out. We knew that he was making calls this morning. There are reports he has made them, or was making them, as that vote was held open. If you've been with us this whole time, you know that during that chaos there, the president was indeed engaged. There actually are some photos that have surfaced, wire photos from inside the House chamber of members on the phone with Susie Wiles, who is Trump's set-to-be chief of staff at the White House and a key aide who has been helping track this situation for the president-elect, a sign of what they were doing collectively here in Florida to shore up support for Johnson and ensure that this happened as hoped for this afternoon. As we said earlier, a win is a win for the Speaker and for the president-elect, but it was messy. And it will be, or what we saw today really is a preview of what's to come. It will be difficult for Republicans to get across the finish line as close as it is to Democrats in terms of the margins on a host of issues, all the ones the Speaker laid out there. If they can get even a handful of those done by Easter, it will be seen as a smashing legislative success for Republicans. But there are a suite of disagreements on all of those things among Republicans about how exactly to proceed. And on these kinds of big votes in these moments, certain members who hold out or who want changes made are going to have a huge amount of influence as they try to get these things done. Influence with the Speaker, influence with the President over trying to craft Republican-led policy. But either way, a sigh of relief here in Florida for the Trump team as the Speaker is now in place and the agenda setting and the legislating can begin.
Ed O'Keefe, can't extend enough gratitude for you being by my side for the last 90 minutes. Thank you so much. Let's go to CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian, who is with Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. Nicole?
Yeah, thanks so much. And Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. I just want to get your reaction right now to the Speaker-elect's remarks. What did you make of him and his message?
I think the Speaker's ready to go. Our members are ready to go. We have a lot of work to do. Short amount of time to do it, but we're going to demonstrate to the American people that we weren't just campaigning on talking points. We were campaigning on an agenda and a vision for the future of this country, and we're going to deliver.
Take us inside the room. Obviously, this vote, he did secure the votes, but it took a little while. It took a little negotiating. What was it like for you as you waited out this process?
Yeah, Honestly, nothing new for me. I've been here before, seen this before. I knew we were going to be able to get this done and get it done pretty quickly. There's really not much separation in terms of what everybody in our conference wants to accomplish. It's really about making sure that our body remains a member-driven organization and not a top-down organization. And I think that's really important and critical for our members, even the ones who voted for Speaker Johnson without any equivocation. I know that's something that's very important to them. So I think we were able to resolve it quickly. Now, work.
Yeah, and explain how the speaker was able to get to yes with a few members, because one of them, Congressman Keith Self, actually voted for you at the outset, but then switched his vote for Speaker Mike Johnson.
I can't comment on that one because I wasn't there for that conversation. I felt it was.
Eva, did you have any conversations with Congressman Self or talk to him?
No, I didn't have any.
Did you know that he was going to support you?
No, it actually caught me off guard. I was in the back talking to two of my predecessors, Connie Mack III and Connie Mack IV, during that situation. So it caught me off guard. But look, I think at the end of the day, we have a Speaker of the House now. We're going to be focused on our mission ahead. And we have a lot of work to do. It really starts today. Tomorrow, we're going to have like a mini retreat, go over a lot of issues tomorrow, and really try to get to a place where we can land these multiple planes, if you will. Because it's about the American people. There are no excuses here. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and it's incumbent that we deliver, and I know Speaker Johnson's up to that task, and so are the members here.
I know you said that you didn't really have too much doubt in your mind, but how critical was it for the speaker to win this vote on the first round instead of this going multiple rounds? We saw they kept the vote open for a while.
I thought it was very important that the speaker find a way to get this done right now. I thought that was very, very important, and glad that was able to be accomplished. Now, next thing.
And in terms of the agenda, very briefly, obviously we heard the speaker lay out this America First policy of the president-elect, starting with securing the border. We also heard from leader Hakeem Jeffries, though, too, who said that Democrats are willing to work across the aisle. Is that going to be possible in this Congress?
That's up to the Democrats. The American people soundly reject open borders. They soundly reject selling off pieces of border wall. They soundly reject allowing millions and millions of people to enter our country through apps and across our southern border. And the American people spoke loudly this November. If the Democrats want to work on serious border security, they will have partners with Republicans on Capitol Hill. If they just want to talk about it and not be about it, well, then they're probably just going to vote no, but we're going to get the job done anyway.
All right, Congressman Byron Donalds, we really want to thank you for your time and for joining us, and certainly I'm sure we'll be talking to you again.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole, I want to ask you something because you also have some news about how at least one of the defectors may have come around to vote for Johnson. What can you tell us?
Well, obviously, we are hearing from one of them right now, Ralph Norman. If he comes a little closer to the camera, we might be able to hear more of what he is saying. But we do know in terms of Congressman Keith Self, he did say that he spoke with President-elect Trump earlier today, as well as after the vote. As Congressman Norman gets a little closer, I'm going to see if maybe we can get him to stop at the camera real quick. Congressman, why did you change your vote?
Love you, brother. We had a good discussion.
Can you stop very briefly? Why did you change?
Hold on, let me get over here right quick. I'll come right back.
Well, we're on live, so if you could just tell us very quickly.
No, I mean we had a talk with President Trump. We got in there. We I never know how this stuff's going to come out. I didn't know how people are going to vote. The fact that we got together, Mike gave us his assurances he's going to fight for the things we think are important for the country. And was it worth taking another hour? Yes. And so I'm excited with the way it came out. Mike is too.
All right, thank you, Congressman. All right, so you heard it there. I may have lost my IFB very briefly, so I may or may not be able to hear you, but you heard directly there from Congressman Ralph Norman of South Carolina, one of two House Republicans who switched his vote in favor of Speaker Mike Johnson, saying that he, too, spoke with President-elect Trump and is taking Speaker Mike Johnson at his word in terms of some of the reforms that he would like to see going forward from the Speaker, and that is kind of what helps seal the deal for him, as I mentioned right before we got Congressman Norman, Congressman Keith Self, also someone who switched his vote after speaking with the president-elect. So clearly there was a lot of phones being worked, a lot of conversations being had, but now we know certainly that the president-elect did help play a role in helping Speaker Mike Johnson to secure this vote. And it really doesn't come as a huge surprise because the president-elect very vocally expressed his support for Speaker Mike Johnson, endorsed him in the run-up to this speaker's race, hosted him at Mar-a-Lago. The two have met many times. They met here in Washington not too long ago at the Army-Navy game, and they have really been strategizing in terms of how to implement the president-elect's agenda, which is something the speaker just laid out here on the floor in terms of talking about securing the border, in terms of talking about energy independence, in terms of fiscal responsibility, trying to cut the size of the federal government. All of these policies we heard the speaker lay out, but much of that stemming from President-elect Trump's agenda. So this also, there was a lot on the line for the president-elect from that standpoint, which is likely why he was very much involved in this process as all of this drama played out.
There is no one better. It is a privilege to get to watch you and your cameraman work. Thank you so much for getting that live interview for us. We will continue to stay on top of any developments in this story, but we do want to get to some other news today as well. And the White House has announced that President Biden and the First Lady will travel to New Orleans on Monday to grieve with those impacted by the New Year's Day truck attack. Here's a look at Bourbon Street, which has now reopened. And as you can see, a vigil now marks the scene where 14 people were killed and dozens others were injured. We are also hearing from the brother of the attacker. Let's listen.
Everything was just how he had always been.